Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is our webinar on patient to advocate, and this is a discussion with me, Justice Nacarado, and Kathy Masterson. This is a personal look at Kathy's journey with her health and fertility and what it can look like on the other side of that journey. I mean, it's kind of always a journey, right? But um,
Yes.
there is a big portion of it that can end, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of what we're here to talk about. Kathy, thank you so much for being willing to share such a big part of your personal life with us.
I just really hope that it just helps people who might be struggling getting started to kind of see, first of all, that there is hope. There's always hope. And, second of all, that it is actually possible. So I just really hope that that's what happens. Um,
Love that. Thank you so much. That is really what we aim for here at the collective, right? Is to really advocate for people and to help you advocate for yourself, and to
yes.
tell you that there is hope, right? So Kathy's journey has been a really interesting one with a lot of ups and downs, but some beautiful outcomes. And
Yes.
I'm gonna let you take it, Kathy, because it's your story. So you go ahead.
All right. So I guess we'll start at the beginning. So this started back in the spring of 2011. I had gotten accepted into a design school in Florence, Italy. So I was living there for a bit. I had just started dating my now husband. I was in my young 20s. Life was great. And then I started just having some symptoms that I couldn't quite explain. I was having severe stomach cramping and nausea, like constantly. I was having really bad reactions to different foods, to alcohol. And I didn't know at the time was that I was having these panic attacks where like I was having just out of body dissociations. I was just absolutely couldn't breathe, felt like I couldn't breathe. My heart would be racing and I couldn't get it to stop for like hours at a time.
Really scary stuff.
It was really scary stuff, and it just kinda started almost suddenly. It didn't seem like it was a gradual thing, it was very, very sudden for me. I mean, I was very miserable, and I just felt like I couldn't go anywhere without being sick, which really kinda sucked. So I
Especially in
came
Italy.
Oh my god. Why did it have to happen in Italy? Of all places. Um, oh god. So I remember coming home to the States for the summer, and I went to my doctor at home. And then I went to another doctor because I went to New York to start working because that's where Sean was. So I kind of wanted to be close to him for the summer. And all the blood tests came back normal, all the screens came back normal. And so we kind of just chalked it up to maybe I was homesick, maybe I just caught a bug while I was out there. And like I was still feeling it over the summer, but it wasn't as bad. So I thought, okay, maybe it's just taking me time to get over it. We just kinda were like, "Okay, that's weird." Then I went back to Florence that September for my 2nd semester, and by, like, late October into November, like, I started feeling so much worse. There were days, like, I'd be walking to school, I'd be in complete misery, I started bailing on outings, I started bailing on my art, like, I wasn't turning in projects, I missed out on some trips to see different parts of Europe. I remember,
Such a
like, one
bummer.
it was such a bummer, like and I remember, a couple of my professors pulling me aside. There's like this, "We know you're capable of doing much more," and I was like and I was, and I
Yeah.
physically couldn't get it done, and it was just awful, and, not the note that I wanted to go out with Italy, like, I just, ugh,
Yeah.
my god, why did it have to happen in Italy?
I know.
Um,
Of all the
of
places.
all the places! Um, so got back home, I went to more doctor's appointments and they ran tests, they ran labs. I think I had an EKG done, because of the heart palpitations and like nothing. There was nothing wrong. They just couldn't see anything. And I just was feeling so confused and frustrated. It's like there's obviously something wrong. This isn't normal. And then by that time, it was stomach cramps, it was nausea, it was panic attacks. And then, like, by the middle of every day, I was so tired and my brain just felt like I was just in this fog. I couldn't function at work. I was starting to have dizzy spells. I couldn't go anywhere. Like I went to work, came home, and just like was curled up in a ball. It was just not, it was awful. And then I started waking up every single night around 3 o'clock in the morning, feeling sick to my stomach, heart racing, hyperventilating, dizzy, anxious. I wasn't sleeping. It was awful. Um, and I kept going back to, I'm just like, this isn't normal. Like, so finally my doctors were like, and I remember because I wrote it down, they told me it was a serotonin deficiency. So what they were going to do was put me on Zoloft for the daytime and Xanax for the nighttime so that I could sleep. Because they couldn't find anything else that was wrong with me. Because they're just like, no, everything's coming back normal. And I'm like, okay, well, it's not.
Which is
Uh,
usually a good thing when you hear that, right? Like you want to hear.
Usually, you want to hear normal, but at the same time, I was like, just tell me something is wrong because
Yeah,
then it would make sense.
right.
But they're telling me nothing's wrong, and now they're putting me on antidepressants and anti-anxiety, and all you can think of is, oh my God, it's all in my head,
Yeah.
and that's not a good place to be if you don't know what you should be doing about it other than taking the medicine. So I remember that was at the beginning of the summer of 2012, they put me on the medicine. And it did help, like it did help. I was able, okay, I can go back to work. Sean and I could actually go on dates instead of just him sitting there holding me as I'm like sobbing, trying to figure out what's wrong with me. Um, but then by the
It's a good
end,
test, right?
it's good to listen. That man has earned that man has earned every award. Um,
Sean's good people. We know
he's
this. Yes.
good people. But by the end of the summer of 2012, like I don't even think I was on the medication for 5 months. I think, yeah, the pain and the nausea started coming back. I started waking up with panic attacks. And it's like, okay, does that mean I'm just gonna have to keep increasing the dosage? Like I just was like, I don't want to do that if I don't know why it's happening.
Yeah.
Um, so I was at my wit's end, and then I think it was around September, or it was August, September that my mom reached out to me because of course I would be contacting her, and she was confused too. We were all just like, what the heck? And she told me, and it's just really funny how this worked out. Her hairdresser had found this place where she had taken her daughter for some symptoms she couldn't get an explanation for. So she said, "Why don't you come home for a bit?" Because again, I was in New York and my parents were in California. And they're like, come home and we'll take you to this place. And so that's when I met Justice. And this was back when you were working with your dad, right? Like a
Yeah.
long time ago.
Long time. Yeah.
And I honestly was not optimistic when I first got there because I was like, this is just another doctor's appointment. Like, they're just going to tell me I'm crazy and, whatever.
Mhm.
And
And that's fair.
yeah, I was just like, okay. I remember I had to list off my symptoms and I remember, you wrote everything down and we were looking at things. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. You just looked at me and said, "Do you wake up with headaches?" And I'm like, "Yeah, doesn't everybody?" And you're like, "No." And then you started listing all these other symptoms that I didn't really think about because like the big ones for me, it was the nausea, it was the stomach cramping, it was the panic attacks, but there were these other little symptoms, the waking up with headaches in the morning, the not being able to to concentrate and focus on certain things at certain times of the day, like all these different things that like you kind of forget are just not normal.
Yeah.
So, and you had listed these off, and I'm just like, "Oh my God, yes, like someone is listening to me." Um,
Well,
so I
the big
think,
symptoms tend to overshadow the other
yeah,
stuff that's going
you
on. And when you've been living with it for so long, it's just easy to be like, well, no, this is just my norm.
this is just normal. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, yeah, doesn't everybody have a panic attack in the line at CVS? I mean, come on.
I mean,
Uh,
I have. I don't know about you.
Oh my God, it was just like, so I remember just, yeah, we're looking at different things. And then eventually I think we found, okay, my hormone levels were off. I had adrenal fatigue. I wrote this down, so I'm reading it. Mycoplasmic infection, among other things. So these are like the big things, like, okay, like, there are some things that are wrong.
Yeah.
So I remember we started a variety of supplements and things to start the treatment. And I just remember within that first month, I had felt better than I had since before 2011. And like it didn't seem overwhelming. Like, I mean, you have to remember to take your supplements on time. And, there were a few things that, I had never heard of before, definitely. Like, I'm trying to remember the adrenal fatigue one was you had to mix like the vitamin C crystals
Oh, yeah,
and
they
yeah,
did. Yeah, I forgot about that.
yeah,
Well, I still use it, but yeah, it's like vitamin C crystals and potassium chloride and a couple things, and you make
yeah.
your own little concoction.
Yes, you
Yeah.
definitely was like, okay, I'm not going to blow myself up, right? No. Um,
I
but
mean,
but so I mean there were definitely some life changes that I had to make and like really really pay attention to. Okay, I got to make sure I take my supplements, got to make sure I take this. So but like I really did start to feel better. And it was just the start of my healing journey, but like I started to feel better and I was like, okay, I actually have a plan. I actually have someone who's listening to me and not just going to prescribe me pills. Um
give you a little bit of
so
hope.
A little bit of hope, definitely.
Yeah.
And then, like, as we've continued working, because I think it was about a year later, um, I started experiencing a new symptom. I would just get really hot and irritable, and I'd be just like lashing out.
I
And then my
remember that.
morning headaches were coming back, and then my cycle started to become irregular, and I was bleeding heavily. And I remember Sean, he just kind of joked, he's like, "What are you having hot flashes? Like, what's wrong with you?" And so I remember like there was like a hormone panel that you had me take and send off to a different lab or whatever, and you would like look at the results. And then I did write, I have this from the email. I kept a lot of stuff. I'm kind of a pack rat of information this way, just because like, especially with my health, is like, okay, I need to
Yeah.
like keep this information so I don't forget it because I forget all the big words. And just so that I can, just also it's
Yeah.
important. So you had said the ratio between your estradiol and progesterone should be about 300 and yours is 73. So basically you're in like an early menopause, which is why you're having the issues you're having. So I was like, "Hey Sean, remember that joke?"
Funny you say
"Hmm,
that.
funny you say that." And like, I freaked out a bit because, you don't want to see the words early menopause when you're 24 and about to get married.
Right.
But luckily, Justice was there to kinda talk me off the ledge. Uh,
Well, fortunately for you, I'd been there before, almost exactly, because my
yeah,
story was so similar to yours. So, um, it just was a little bit easier. It's like
yeah,
it's okay, we
it's
can do
fine.
this.
We can do this. So that's when I started, like, my regime of hormones and topical progesterone. And, we had talked and we kinda kept checking in on it, was it about a year? I can't remember now. Maybe like half a year or something like that before I got
Okay.
married, and it was like, okay, let's start, all right, I can get married, Sean and I want kids, so, we got this, like, okay.
You're so great and
Um,
proactive on all of those
yeah.
things. Yeah.
Kids did not happen right away. We wanted to wait a little bit before plunging into parenthood, but by the time we thought we were ready, like things were not progressing. And I remember in March 2016, I reached back out to you and I'm just like, okay, like I'm not getting better. And you were like, let's do another hormone panel. And I remember the results were just not good because my progesterone was so low, even lower than it was in 2013. Um, and we were just like, okay, we got to figure this out. What steps can we do? And I think just talking and kind of figuring things out, it was just like, okay, it's my job. I was an executive assistant. I was working really long hours. I was getting calls at like 11 o'clock at night. I was coming in early just so I could have meetings with bosses before my day even started. I had,
I mean, neurosurgeons get more sleep than you were getting at that point and dealt with less stress. Like I remember going, okay, this is just I don't even know.
oh,
Are
it was
you building a nuclear bomb? Like why
no.
are you under so much stress? It
Oh
was
my
crazy
God.
with the stress you were under.
At the time, it's just like, no, this is like my work, this is
Yeah.
like the New York pace or whatever. And, I just,
Well, it is, but that's not
yeah, it is, but
okay.
that's not, yeah, exactly. And I think at that point, I'd been there for almost 5 years. I now had three bosses. And I remember because they were like, okay, you're dropping the ball on something. So I typed up all of my responsibilities and it was a 10-page single spaced Word document of all the things that I was in charge of and things like that. And I'm like, okay. something needs to get taken off my plate. And they took one thing off my plate. And it was something that I actually enjoyed doing. And that's
Yeah.
when I was like, this is not, this is
It's not sustainable.
not sustainable. And like, yeah, so Sean and I were talking, and it's just like, I can't, if I want to be a mom, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, then we'll figure this out. So quit. And I said, fine. So I think it was that June I quit. I got a part-time job that was 5 minutes from the house, or the little apartment that we were in. Um, so like I was still earning money, but it was like, okay, I could rest in the morning. I could kind of take it easy for once, which felt so foreign to me.
Yeah.
Ultimately we had to move in with my in-laws, who they were, I mean, unbelievably amazing. But ultimately, like, my whole environment shift was just to much less stress. I mean, yeah, we still were like, okay, now we need, because I was kind of earning more than Sean at that point, because he had been in school, and then he had just gotten another job as an MA, a medical assistant. I can't remember now. My timeline is so wonky.
It's been about a decade,
It's been
so
a while,
it's
yeah,
fair.
but, like, he was in school, and then he was working again. So we both were working, but it's just like, New York, New Jersey
Yeah.
prices, man, they were,
Yeah.
so, I mean, with, moving with the in-laws, and that ultimately is just kind of what I needed, because then you and I could focus on my hormone regime, and just, like, really laser focusing on, okay, reducing the stress, getting the hormones back up. And it did take my body some time to recover. So it was definitely some several months.
Yeah.
But in April of 2017, I started to feel sick and nauseous again. And I started to despair. And Sean kind of looked at me and he goes, "This one's different." I'm like, "How can nausea be different? There's no way it's different. Nausea is nausea." And he's like, "Honey, just piano stick." And like the whole weekend, because we're actually away for a weekend for my goddaughter's baptism, and I'm just like, "Ah, I'm sick again, and I can't believe I'm sick again, and I have to do this all over again." And Sean's like, "No, this is different." I'm like, "How do you know? What do you know?"
Boys don't know anything.
Boys don't know anything. So we get back from the weekend, and Sean's like, "Kathy, please, like, just rule it out." And it said yes,
Which
and I
he's
was like,
smart because I would have said the same thing.
he is, like, I was just like so just in my brain, like I just was equating feeling crappy to being sick, and not that, okay, this could actually be what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So the
Well,
pregnancy,
that's fair, right?
yeah,
Like from what you had been through, I think it's pretty fair for your brain to
yeah,
just immediately be like, not this again, right?
yeah, that's exactly what it was. Not this again, please.
Yeah.
I've been working so hard. I've been doing everything so right.
Doing the work.
Yes, I'm putting in the work, dang it. And yeah, I was pregnant. It was just so crazy. And then of course I have to deal with the whole new nausea, which yes, there is the difference. I can now say there is the difference in nausea.
Yes.
Um, yes, and smelling. Oh my God, I had the super sniffer with that one. That
Oh,
was fun because we were living with my in-laws, trying to keep it secret until I was far enough along. And I remember oh God, my father-in-law is a sweet and amazing person. And he just loves to talk to us. And so like in the mornings, like he would just talk. He would just like whatever's on his mind, he would just talk. And I remember one morning, both of the bathrooms were being used, and I was like, I'm gonna be sick. And he's just talking and happy that we're there and just life is good. And I'm just like, I'm gonna throw up all over my father. Like, just oh my God.
hmm.
But yeah, so Sophia was born in 2018. And then in 2022, I had Olivia. And we had a little bit of work with Olivia too. I think I had some irregular cycles, and then we went back on hormones for a little bit. So,
Well,
you
you had
know,
some other health challenges pop up that kind of derailed your hormones a little. Um,
yeah,
so
yeah, but we got, so like things keep happening, but like there was less time. So like with Sophia, it took about 3 years.
yeah,
With Olivia, it did take longer, but that there was a completely unrelated health issue that happened. But by the time we
and a
started,
cross country move.
And a cross
And
country move, little small things, you know. Um,
going back to those things that you forget about.
yeah, because it's just like, oh
Like,
yeah, what did we do? We did move across the country. I did have a whole year where I was sick, something completely unrelated. And then, but when we were actually looking to try again for Olivia, it definitely was way quicker,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And then surprise, the new one, we weren't even trying. So, uh
I will always remember that call. That was lovely. And I was just, you were like, I, I'm pregnant. How did this happen?
Olivia's barely 1 year old and I'm pregnant. How did that
Yeah,
happen?
she hadn't even turned one, I think, yet when you had found
I
out.
think so.
Yeah.
Because it was just like I was just in that mentality that okay, I'm always gonna need to be on hormones before I have a baby, but that's okay because at least I know the drill, so I've got the drill. And oh, I'm pregnant.
Oh.
Whoops.
Well, and in fairness, people that work for me often end up pregnant. And so I should have warned you ahead of time. But I guess, because so many of well, actually, my whole team now is made up of former clients. So um, I guess I just assume you guys know. But it's funny because now I'm treating in the Pacific College Clinic and it's kind of happening again. And I'm like, well, it can't be in the water because Kathy is not in the same
Yes,
state.
we're not in the same state,
Not the
so
same state. So apparently, I mean, I think it just speaks to, when you do the things that you need to do for your body to be able to do its job,
yeah.
then it does its job, right? And so you have done all those things. You were, as hard as it was at times, because I love you and this story is amazing and you are making it sound like it was just, so
No,
easy to
that's
get
true.
through.
Like there were moments where like I mean there were tears. There was like, Sean had to just be there and just like listen to me sob. Like there were definitely, especially in those really early days when we didn't know what was happening and then like with trying to get my work at the time to just listen to me and like help me like
I
every day I would
remember
come home
those
in
calls.
tears. It
Yeah.
was awful, and then like the decision to quit my job, like that was definitely, you know that's
Well, that's
never.
gut-wrenching. Like, how do
Yeah.
you, and actually, I'm seeing a question in the chat here. Like, how do you even get to that place, right, where you're like, yeah, I can do this. I can quit. How was that feeling for you?
It helps to have support, it does help to have support, but ultimately you really need to decide, what do you want? Do you want to be clouded in stress and frustration and just this feeling that you're never going to be well, that you're never going to accomplish what you really want to do? And because motherhood was like, yes, I love working, I love, what I do, but like I wanted motherhood. That was my goal, and also to just, be able to go outside without feeling like I was going to have a panic attack.
Yeah.
So you really have to decide, and it's not easy. It took like weeks of talking with Sean and everything, and just like, laying awake at night, just like dreading work the next day. And and then finally it's just like, this isn't life. This isn't living.
Yeah.
It isn't even surviving. It's just, I don't even know what you would call that. It's just,
Subsisting. It's just getting by.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's you have to kind of come to the realization that you are worth more. You are worth so much more. And it's hard. It really is. I mean, like, I really had to make total lifestyle changes. I had to completely give up things like alcohol and certain food items, just because they stress out my body. And it's just like, okay, I have to give them up. Like, um,
But that was
you
short
know,
term, right? We didn't have to do that forever.
alcohol, I still can't go back to. That's one
Oh
of those things.
no.
Every time I have it, I get really sick. And it's just like,
Yeah.
but it's like, okay,
Well,
if
you're
I,
pregnant right now, so you probably
right. So
should.
no alcohol anyway. Exactly. But But there's just these lifestyle changes that you really do have to make. You really do have to make a commitment to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think in this day and age, that's really hard to do. It's really hard to make the commitment to yourself to say, no, I'm sorry, but I actually do need to come first right now. Um,
Yes.
there is that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's like, it's true. I literally could not conceive a child if I didn't take care of myself. And if I
Right.
could just conceive a child, how would I be able to take care of them if I was constantly having panic attacks and just constantly not feeling well?
Yeah.
So, I mean, sure, every once in a while, like I'm going to feel kind of sick sometimes and I'll come back to you, but at least I have hope. I have a plan. And that makes those moments, maybe those weeks or months where I'm just like, I just haven't been the
Yeah.
best, at least I can get through them knowing, okay, I just have to put work back in. Maybe I've been slacking. Maybe I've been eating too much processed food, stuff like that. So, it is a commitment to yourself and it is this realization. And sometimes it's so funny coming afterwards, but you do have to come to that realization that, you know what, I'm not worth this crap that I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm actually worth so much more.
That's such a, I mean, just such a important point to
Yeah.
really take away from it is just it's a you really have to put yourself first. It's the whole thing that I say a lot too of like, when they're doing the briefing in a airplane, right? They're like, put your mask on first. And the
Yes.
reason for that is because if you pass out, you can't help the person next to
Exactly.
you.
Exactly.
So put your mask on first, and then you can go around and help people that need help.
Yeah.
But what good are you if you're laying in the in the aisle
Right.
too? Now we're just tripping over
And
you.
now we're just, yeah, exactly. Now you've become that burden, whatever. And it's like, no, you sometimes you really just have to be like, okay, I've got to focus on me,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and you and I have had this discussion before too that, like you said, to your point, in this world, it's a very difficult thing to do, especially with some of the roles that are assigned in
Yeah.
society these days, right? So we're supposed to have the job and have the kids and keep the house clean and cook the meals and do all the things and do it all with a smile on our face
Yes.
and never have any feelings about it. And you're so wonderful at that, Kathy. I have to say, you just always have such a beautiful smile on your face, and you're always showing up and you're always ready to go, even when I know you're not ready to go.
Even when my living room is a disaster, Olivia's climbing all over me in the meeting.
It keeps us entertained, and I love it. But,
Definitely, yes.
it also speaks to how we have to be, right? Like
Yeah.
we just kind of have to get through the day,
Yeah.
but you don't have to do it with cement blocks on your feet, right? We
Yes.
can at least
Yes.
chip away at that a little bit and
Because I
help you
mean,
feel.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm still in the realm of, okay, well, I mean, I'm dealing with nausea now again, but for
For
a
a good
different reason.
reason.
For a
Yeah.
good reason. Olivia was up last night at 4 o'clock in the morning. Sophia is uh, not neglecting her bedtime, but she's like getting up and like just wandering the house at best, like, okay, Sophia. So, like, and then like the house is always crazy and a wreck, because Sean and I are both working. So we're both trying our best to split
Yeah.
the job responsibilities and the kids. And every once in a while, it's like, all right, Sean, I got to tap out for an hour. And or
Yeah.
it's Sean's like, Kathy, I got to tap out for an hour. So we're trying to make it work. But yeah, like you said, not having those cement blocks on the feet, because I can't imagine doing this feeling the way I did back in like 2011, 2012.
Well, there's no
Like
way. There's no
there,
way.
I mean, yeah, it wouldn't be fair to Sean. It wouldn't be fair to my kids, and it definitely isn't fair to me to just expect well, this is how life is, so you better suck it up. And it's like, it doesn't have to be like that.
No, it
It
doesn't.
doesn't have to.
It
And it's
doesn't.
okay to take care of yourself. You
Bingo.
know,
Yeah.
it is okay. We there is this mentality that it's selfish to take care of yourself. And it's like, yeah, but how do you expect me to do anything if I am not okay? You
Well,
just,
and that's a really good point too. Like, we are expected to just keep going. and we are expected to cover symptoms quite a bit, right?
Yes.
We're used to
Yes.
going, getting a pill. Oh, you have a pain, take this pill, it'll be gone. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we need to live in pain. We live in a modern world. There is no reason for people
Yes.
to suffer. I say that all the time. Please do not suffer unnecessarily. However, learn from it. What is that pain
Yes.
trying to tell you? Because that's really all symptoms are, right? Is that
Yes.
we just need to listen to it, try to figure out what it's trying to say to us, interpret that, give it what it needs, and the body will do the work for you.
Right.
It can only do so much though.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Without all of the tools. So um, we just need to have the tools and they are available. I think that's a really
Yes.
important thing is that there are tools to get better and to have
Yes.
an abundant life and as many children as you
Yes.
want unexpectedly.
Unexpectedly, yes, but and I think to that point, 'cause I notice this with a lot of people is that when the first treatment that's given to you doesn't really work the way you want it to, a lot of people just give up. I had to go through a lot of different, treatments with you in order to get things to really narrow down,
Yeah.
to what it was.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you do have to adjust as you go. And that's not because something's not working or it's not because this isn't right. It could just be maybe like when we started, one of the big things we wanted to address was the adrenal fatigue. And that's the one I think we really went after first. And then less than a year later, I started having like the hot flash symptoms. And you're like, okay, now it's time to course
Yeah.
correct to or not course correct, but like, okay, it's time to change course to
Yeah.
hormones. Because now that we have adrenal fatigue, even though you might still have to work on that, we know what works. Now we can start working on the hormones, and because it's almost never just one thing. Sometimes it is multifaceted. And so sometimes a treatment might not work right away because there's so much going on. And also because you could have been suffering for so long, it's not going to get better overnight.
That's
So I
right.
think that's just something I also want to put out there that, it's taken me, we started in 2011
Yeah.
and every occasionally I still come to you for like gut health issues and, fertility,
We
although I
actually
didn't.
had you on the schedule for gut health issues when you found
I
out you
remember, and I'm now wondering, it's like, was I having gut health issues because I was pregnant again? Like, now I'm one. I can't remember now when our first session was now. So,
and you're like,
maybe
well, this is a different session
well.
now. Okay.
So, like
Well, as you heal, you need different things
yes,
too, right? So, like it's the triage thing where you have to do one thing at a time, really, because your body really can't do it all at once. And to your point, you've been dealing with this for a long time. It's probably going to take a little while to get there. And there's another question here in the chat, actually. So, how did you keep from getting discouraged through that process?
well, it helped that the first treatment I did respond to very well. And I think I was just so determined to start getting better that I really was like making sure. Um, but like, and this might be controversial. You may or may not agree with me, but I did get discouraged. And I think you're allowed to get discouraged. But you sit down, you have your cry, you say F you to the world. And then the next day you just get back up and go like, okay,
Yeah.
what do I need to do today? And I think you can allow yourself to be discouraged as long as you remember that there is hope and you can pick yourself back up and get out there. And I think, there were a lot of moments. There were a lot of tears, especially when we were first starting for Sophia. I think we were, because it was like, because it was March 2016. That's when you were real like, yeah, your estrogen or your progesterone is the lowest I've ever seen it. Um, and I was trying to work with my bosses and they just weren't working with me. So June I had quit. And then I think you had wanted me to do a hormone panel like every month because of just how low it was. We needed to really track it. And it was slowly climbing. And I remember just every month, just when we would talk, like I would just sob because it's just like I'm trying so hard and it's just I'm not bouncing back. It is taking time to heal. I know it's taking time, but dang it, it's just so frustrating, you know? And then like um Yeah, and it was just, so every month into 2017, we were working on it. We were getting better. And I think you were finally like, okay, you're finally at like a good level, like, but we need to still like make sure. So we were like, okay, we're at a good level. Finally, we're getting there. But like, okay, we still need to get there. And then Sophia was there. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
But then like even then, like I remember just like Sean and I were talking, and it's just like, okay, well, I've had progesterone problems. We just should prepare ourselves. And I don't wish that conversation on anyone. But like you just kind of have to also be realistic, and that can be really hard.
Yeah.
Um thankfully nothing happened, and actually it was a pretty good pregnancy. There were the usual, nausea, aches, the super sniffer. Oh god.
Well, I mean, you've done so much work up to that point.
Yeah.
So, and I think we'd had you on prenatals and a bunch of things too, just in preparation
Yes.
by that point. And
Yes, I think I had been
um,
on prenatals for like 2 years before then,
yeah,
because you were like, "If that's your goal, let's get these minerals and vitamins, like, actually actively in your system."
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think it's really beautiful that you actually say, no, I did get discouraged. I think it's important to say those things and that it can be a discouraging process sometimes.
yeah.
And you do sometimes get a little worse before you get better, or
Yes.
you take 5 steps forward and 3 back, or what have you. And it can feel very lonely. It can feel very infuriating,
Yes.
unfair. I mean, I think there's a lot of emotion that goes along with healing. And as you heal, different emotion come up.
Yeah.
So thank you for saying that and validating that that's actually a thing. Like it
Yeah.
is a thing and it is real. And part of the reason we have these disease processes is because of stuffing emotions. So I think
Yeah.
it's really important to work through that as they're coming up for you in your healing process. And like, no, today I am just mad. I'm
Yeah.
just mad that I'm
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
I'm sad. I just want to cry today. I don't know. Okay,
yeah.
well, cry it out. Whatever you need to do, you got to work through those emotions and let them move through.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're just going to get stuck.
I think, because I did at one point, I was in therapy, and this was, again, with my totally unrelated health issues, that I had in 2019. Um And I remember seeing a counselor, and they said, it's okay to feel your feelings. And I think we do kind of have this like, no, 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 I can't cry or whatever. And like, I remember there had been a point up in my marriage with Sean that like he had only seen me cry a handful of times. And then now it's like, okay, now the poor man, especially with these pregnancy hormones, I'm just like, oh, but like there's that, just I don't know, I don't even know where it comes from, this subconscious like, no, you can't show your emotions, or if you do, then you're just too emotional and not rational. It's like, no, I'm, I can be a rational human being, but sometimes, dang it, I'm gonna kick my heels and cry when the world's being a little unfair. And I
Yeah,
think I'm entitled to that. I'm
yeah,
entitled to that when I've worked for months and years trying to rebuild my health when it fell apart for I don't even know what reason.
yeah,
Um, and sometimes if I keep getting, kickbacks, or just keep getting these stumbling blocks, I think I'm allowed to just be like, well, ding, ding, darn, and much worse words, and I'm just going to cry. And then, okay, the next day, okay, I just needed to get that out of my system. It's out. I have
yeah,
sworn at the world and into the universe, and now I can, and honestly, sometimes it feels better.
yeah,
Sometimes crying is part of the healing process. You just need to get all of it out, and then you're like, okay, all right,
yeah,
let's go. Like,
yeah, yeah. No, that's a really valid point. So, as we're coming to the end of our hour here, Kathy, as you're transitioning from the patient to advocate, what would be your main takeaway? What would you say for people who are just getting into this journey?
be patient with yourself, first of all. Um, it can be a long process. It can be like what happens to you health wise can, it can linger for a long time, but it can also come on so quick. But just because it comes on so quick doesn't mean that it's going to be that quick and leaving. It's going
Yeah,
to, it almost takes twice as long to heal from something as it does happening to you. And that's just unfortunately the reality. So be patient with yourself, be patient with the process. Don't be afraid to speak up about it and just be like, I'm not 100% sure about this. You know, what does this mean? Maybe I'm having a new symptom, goodness knows I've told you about all my new symptoms all the time. And sometimes you're just like, all right, I think maybe it's just you need to take a deep breath. Or,
Yeah.
you know what? Let us look at that.
Yeah.
Um,
They're all
and
valid and we want to hear them all because all the symptoms make a big picture, right?
yes,
So, yeah. But sometimes you do just need to take a big breath. We all
sometimes
do.
you need to take a
I don't
breath.
mean you. I just
I get it. No, I get it. And, you know, uh, you really do again have to make that commitment to yourself. You really
Yeah.
do have to say, I need this for me,
Yeah.
and now like I really do want to work on my health, not just for me anymore, but now for my kids. But now it's like I don't have to feel like I have to sacrifice myself in order to be there. It's like if I work on myself, then ultimately I'm going to be there for them.
Yeah.
And working on myself doesn't mean that I'm like, okay, well, I have to go to a spa for 12 months and somebody else can take care of them. It's like, no, I can
Wouldn't
work on
that be
my
lovely?
listen. Listen. Again, calling Sean out. He did give me for Mother's Day this year, which wound up being the greatest gift ever because that's when we found out I was pregnant, a night off because we were trying to wean Olivia anyway. It's like, okay, so you're just gonna go to a
Mhm.
hotel for a night. You're just gonna get a pedicure because I get like one or two pedicures an entire year because life is crazy. He's like, okay, so you're just gonna relax. And then found out I was pregnant. I was like, okay, now I really need this night. Uh, um, but like, then I can come back, with full force. All right, I can be the mom, I can, be the homemaker, I can, work for you, I can do all of the other crazy different things. Now I'm starting an Etsy shop, and even
I
though I
was just
haven't
gonna mention that too. Like everybody can check out your amazing art on your Etsy shop too.
not a lot is up there yet. I probably should put paintings up there and stuff like that too, but I have to actually get organized and to not have Olivia and Sophia crawling all over me. So it's going to be a slow process, but at least hey, I've started.
You have. And what's
Baby
the
steps.
handle for it?
Oh, good question.
I think it's like Cat Masterson's Designs, right?
I think it is, but let me just double check because so yeah, it is like etsy.com/cat CAT Masterson MASTERSON design. And then right now I just have like coloring pages up there. But again, hopefully I'm hoping to get more stuff up there soon.
They're
And
beautiful coloring pages that you can actually get in some of the mini programs too,
yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
So the
So
self-care one, I think, has one, and I think we were talking about maybe including it with the stress relief one as well. Because listen, coloring, like my mom got me a coloring book when I was pregnant with Sophia for the hospital, and so yeah, just kind of mindful coloring. It can be so like
it's an amazing stress reliever. It really
really
is.
is. It
Yeah.
really is. And I
So you
have
can get
different fun things that are up there. Um, and I'm hoping to do more. I have one that I'm trying to bring in for a landing, but then my computer died and I had to get a new one and all that stuff.
life happened and all the
Life
things.
happens. That's another
Yeah.
thing, okay? Life is gonna happen and
Life is
just
gonna happen.
and baby steps are okay. I think that's another takeaway I just thought of. Baby steps are okay.
We
Everyone
should
needs
put
to
that on a
remember that.
wallpaper, a phone wallpaper. Baby
They,
steps.
baby steps are okay. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Baby steps are necessary, as a matter of
Yeah.
fact. What baby do you know goes from crawling to running? It doesn't happen, right?
Sophia kind of did that. I mean, she was, oh my
Well,
God, that
don't
kid.
ruin the metaphor, Kathy.
Sorry. I say that as my
Oh,
wild children are probably running amok downstairs. It's like, oh, the downstairs was clean before I came up here.
oh, lovely clean house. Well, I'm sure it's still
There's no,
standing. It's because
yes,
you're on the
that's
second
true.
floor at least, so
And
that's good.
honestly, there's for me, there's no point to the house if like the kids don't live in it.
Well, right. They kind it's their house too. So,
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Kathy. I really appreciate you sharing this story with us and the world, really, at this point. Um, so, everybody, you can also check out, like I said, Kathy's stuff on her Etsy. You can also get the mindful coloring and a couple of the mini programs, which I think Kathy's going to put some links up
I will.
for, yeah. And then keep an eye out for more of these series and make sure to sign up for our newsletter, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and all of our socials and all the fun things like that. And thank you so much for joining us. And we hope to see you again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
And